How you doing?
It's because you've got the wires all
Is it the
messed
wires?
up. I think it's pushing it.
Oh my goodness. Is it? Good gravy.
Okay.
Are we good?
I'll let you know if it stops.
Okay.
Starts drifting off again. Well, which one?
Can I?
Second.
You got the?
1, 2, 3, go!
Can I proceed, Hal?
Hal.
The technical difficulties. My name is hi, my name is Martin Ferguson. I'm a movie critic for Moviespoon.com and TwinCitiesGeek.com. Welcome to Movies with Mark. I'm here with my lovely wife, Vision Goo, on Twitch right now.
You can call me Sarah. It seems silly when you say it.
or Sarah. I'm just gonna say your Twitch link. Mention that.
Oh yeah, on Twitch, it's the username is VisionGoo, and on Instagram.
Yep. So as you can see by the side tonight, we'll be talking about two movies. We'll be talking about the new Insidious, the Final Key, and the Last Key, and we'll be talking about the new Netflix urban fantasy that came out at the end of December, Bright.
Someone asked me if you had seen Bright, and I thought you had. I can't remember why they were asking me about it, though.
Oh, was it someone on stream or just someone else?
No, someone in person. I think they knew someone who worked on it or something like that.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that, and then if we have some time at the end there, we'll take some more questions, and we'll also talk about some of the possible awards nominations that are coming up. There's a lot of ballots that are going out now to decide what are going to be nominations for a whole bunch of different awards, so I'll go over a few that are being listed by a few organizations, just because I've gotten a few ballots in the past few days, so we'll be taking a look at that.
I never knew you did that before.
Well, I've started doing it more recently now.
Okay.
I just realized the mic is far away. I'm being closer.
Yeah. Tonight, we're sitting next to each other instead of across from each other, so if we randomly start staring off to the side, that would be why.
Yep. Am I looking different from the camera?
What?
I was asked if I'm looking this way, am I looking at the camera?
You're looking at me.
I'm looking at you. Okay. Cool. Then it's working out better.
You're looking to the side.
Do you want your coffee?
Thank you, sweetie.
There you go. Let me grab. There you had coffee, but no water. So yeah.
Drink coffee at night.
Yeah, who doesn't? I'm not good at all. All right. So Insidious, the Final Key. I think it's the last key.
The reason you weren't on stream with me last night, like you usually are.
Yep, the reason I wasn't on screen because we were at the screening for the fourth Insidious film, which is odd. It seems like it takes place because it's kind of like the last film, which I might be screwing up continuity here, but I think the last film was called Chapter 3, and I think it was supposed to be a prequel to the first Insidious. And this latest one, the fourth one, is apparently the one that kind of brings everything full circle by relating it back to the first Insidious film.
It loops together the cinematic universe of Insidious.
It all comes back together.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
It rhymes. But yeah, it takes place in 2010, and I've actually kind of grown to like the Insidious films, at least from the direction they've taken now, because they've brought in they've shifted the focus now to Lynn Shay, who's played Elise, who's kind of like this psychic, or at least like that's how she's referred to as a psychic. She's this woman who can go into like the further, which is kind of like the place where spirits are kind of lingering, and try to find out what's going on, why there's hauntings going on, and essentially just go in there and kick ass. Like she literally just goes in there and it's like, I'm not taking your crap anymore, ghosts. So she was a lot of fun to watch in Insidious 3, especially with her ghost hunting companions, which they're not psychic, they're not as astute as she is, but they get but they have like a lot of the tech and they do a lot of the fun stuff. They're kind of like the little tag along Ghostbusters for this. For some of her paranormal investigations. They actually have now they have like a ghost hunting logo and like an RV and everything.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of these movies. Busting makes me feel good. And are these the movies that relate to like the Annabelle, or is that something else?
Um, well, it's weird because I think they might cross over with that, but well, it's different because like The Conjuring and Annabelle, they're in like a kind of like a different timeline. They're in like more like the 70s, and
Yeah.
Insidious is taking place more currently.
But it's like the same people and all that in the same universe type shit? Stick thing?
Well, possibly like it's in the Blumhouse universe because it's
Blumhouse.
under the same production company. Like Blumhouse, they do Insidious, they do The Conjuring, they do Annabelle, they do Sinister. So
Oh,
all
really? I didn't know
yeah.
that. Now, I only watched Sinister because I've met the person who wrote the screenplay and I've read some of his books, and
Mm.
we used to watch him when he was a reviewer on Spill.
Mm-hmm. The old
uh,
guy.
I think I told him in person that his movie gave me nightmares, and he apologized, and I said, no, that's okay. That's what they're supposed to do. So, sweet guy. Oh, I just realized I put this on top of a napkin. It's probably not good.
But like, yeah, it's all in the same universe. So yeah, if they can cross over at any point, they can. It'd be kind of weird though because like the first Insidious film, and they show them here too. Like the first Insidious film had Patrick Wilson, and The Conjuring has Patrick Wilson in a different role.
Oh, so maybe that doesn't work.
Or it could cross, it could cross generations. You never know.
I should just say the reason I keep looking down is because I've got something I'm doing some drawing on my lap.
Sure.
So
And
I
like,
have room on the table too.
but like the two Ghostbusters who follow her around are they're called like Tucker and Speck, and Tucker is played by Angus Sampson. You might know him from like some Australian cinema or some British cinema that he's done. He's kind of a big guy. He's usually got a very thick beard, and he's got a very deep voice. And he plays kind of like more of like the inventive guy of the group. Like he's a little bit more goofy. Like he's always got like a kind of a deadpan, cute demeanor to him. So like he'll invent like crazy crap like oh, we're hunting ghosts. We have like voice activated lights, and they won't work. Or he'll have like a kind of like an audio shotgun that he can like better detect ghosts, and doesn't do that great a job. And he tries like at one point he's trying to like come on to some women too, and his method of trying to come on to women is eating Jello in front of them.
Is Jello sexy now?
Well, he was trying to like it was a moment where like someone else was coming on to a woman, so he was trying to give like the bedroom eyes to like this one girl in a hospital bed, just say like you can eat that Jello. And-
I mean, I know Jello's good and all, but maybe it's more like, do you want this Jello?
Yeah.
I
And then
don't know.
well, the best part is he tries to eat it seductively too.
How do you eat Jello seductively?
He tries.
It's all like goopy, like it could fall on the floor. It might remind you of Bill Cosby, and that just doesn't really turn a girl on. Not me, anyway.
No. And then his pal coming along with him is Specs, who's played by Leigh Whannell, who's actually written and directed most of these Insidious films.
Okay.
So he's kind of in there as kind of like the more nerdy guy of the group. You know, he specializes in a little bit of tech. He's trying to weasel his way into conversations and relationships. So, so together, all three of them, they're great. They live under the same roof. They combine their efforts. They crack really good jokes. They have great charisma. So that happened in Insidious 3, and I was really looking forward to the next Insidious film after that. And this fourth film, it would seem like this would be like a great concept for it, because it's supposed to be going back into Elise's past, where she finds out, oh, there's a haunting at the place where she used to grow up, where she was first coming to understand her ghost powers of like seeing other spirits.
Ghost powers.
And she's trying to come to terms with the fact that that her dad used to beat her for talking about
geez.
ghosts, and how she accidentally killed her mother because she was talking to one of the ghosts.
So, like, why is it in movies and stuff, when you have ghost powers, it's usually a bad thing? You know, like, or when, oh, my kid has powers. Oh, be gone, demon! You know, or Harry Potter's aunt and uncle shove him under the stairs and stuff. You know, like, it's scary, therefore we must
Well,
be assholes to
well,
them.
they kind of allude to it, the fact that this power that she has, like her dad has it too. And it's kind of mentioned, it's not outright stated, but it's kind of mentioned that her dad has kind of become, disillusioned with like death and spirits and doesn't want anything to do with it. Because you see him most of the time getting drunk in front of the television, watching the war that was going on at the time, and just saying like, death shouldn't be celebrated, especially since like they live like either like adjacent or close to a prison that has like the electric chair. So like every now and then, like the lights will flicker, and like the kids will say like, "Oh, another prisoner's dead! Like he's going straight to Hayes Express." And Dad's like, "We don't celebrate death.
Yeah.
It's nothing to celebrate." And of course, since there's lots of prisoners being executed, like she Elise starts seeing all the spirits, and she can't help it. There's just ghosts keeps coming through.
I think when you came home last night, I wanted to know about the model I follow on Instagram, because she's in there, Melody Gatos.
That's the interesting thing. Like when thinking back on the film,
she's in the trailer too.
She's in the trailer. I don't remember her from the film though.
You know what? Maybe they just used her for promotion then, since she's got a strong Instagram following. She has I showed you her profile. She's got really interesting pictures she's in.
Yeah, she's
got a really interesting look to her face. So.
Yeah, tall gal, bald.
Well, she's got a very distinctive look. She has some kind of
condition with her skin, isn't it?
It's like something where something didn't develop properly. I don't know. I saw a documentary she was in or something that said what it was, but I have a horrible memory in general, so I really couldn't say. Some kind of what is it? Congenital, like genetic kind of thing. I don't know.
She looks a little off, and
effect, something like that.
Well, yeah, like the clip you saw in the trailer was from inside the Further, where Elise goes looking for spirits, and it's around the scene where she discovers this sort of like the Further version of the prison, where like souls are trapped in some place. And I think she was supposed to represent like one of the other like souls that were trapped there. Because without giving too much away, there's a lot more bodies that have been here, and it's not just because of the prison. And well, that's the big thing. Like my biggest problem with this film, which really ruined it for me, is the fact that it feels like there's a lot of untapped potential here. It feels like I don't think it was just for promotion. I think she might have. Sorry. I think it might have been. I think she might have had a bigger role here, but it feels like there's a lot of stuff that's not taken advantage of. Like I mentioned, the whole electric chair with the prisoners. We don't really see any of the ghosts of the prisoners. And like I said, there's the whole deal with her dad having the psychic powers, and they don't really bring that up either.
So maybe there's a whole bunch of stuff on the cutting room floor. We'll see if they release an extended edition on the Blu-ray or something. That seems to be like a common occurrence these days, right? And I know DC does a lot of that.
Yeah.
Is this something that they've done before, do you know?
Not to a large extent. And this might not be the case here, because this is one of the few Insidious films that's not directed by Lay. I think it's directed by Adam Rodwell or something like that. He still wrote it, but someone else is directing it, and you can kind of tell that it's not really working that well here, because most of the script it's just kind of going quickly through the motions to get to either the next scare or the next plot twist here. And there's a lot of plot twists that just keep mounting higher and higher and higher, to the point where you're kind of like, well, I'm not sure if I can buy this. I mean, it's getting like really crazy the way they keep amping it up here. Because when Elise comes home, obviously she's got a lot to unpack. Like mentally from her past, we learn a lot more. We learn a little bit more about her family, about her lineage, about how she can pass down this power, how her powers work, what's going on with like the red door inside her mind. And it's just like there's all this stuff that keeps getting mounted up, and you feel like they're not really taking advantage of it here, which stinks, because there's a lot of cool little bits and pieces of horror that work here. Like I love the whole atmosphere that there's kind of like an oil, those little like those big oil drills, like right outside the house there, which kind of like creak as they go up and down, and there's this kind of like atmospheric, kind of like a little bit of a synth track going on there, which creates a really cool haunted house vibe. And just the staging of the house, like especially like they have a lot of scenes they shoot at night. They have like the little, not quite like, I guess a little bit similar to night vision, like not quite like blaring green night vision, but kind of like video vision. You get to see a little bit of that. There's a great scene where Tucker, he comes in there with like kind of like the audio shotgun to like kind of like pick up more of like distortion in the sound, and like the rest of the sound just drops out, and we only hear kind of like the static as he's going through that we hear through like through headphones. So there's a lot of cool technical scares here. I love the monster that she confronts here. It's this big beast that has like its nose missing, and it's got little keys on all its fingertips. And once you're inside the further, you can kind of use the little keys to kind of jam them in your throat and kind of like lock out your voice, and then you can go into your heart and kind of lock out your pulse and all this crazy crap.
Is this a spoiler? Are you supposed to give warnings about that?
No, it's not really. I mean, this is in the trailer, and I haven't really explained like what this monster's doing here. And the thing is, like, there's so many plot twists to this that it would take forever just to unpack everything here. But I think that's the problem, is because I love these characters so much that I feel there should be more to them. Like, this is Elise's origin story, so I feel like I should get to know a lot more about her family and about her past and how she feels about this house, and more memories that are in this house, because it feels like we skate past all this stuff really quick, and it feels like this should be a lot bigger than it should be. And even just like small stuff, like I mentioned, like Tucker and Speck, they get an RV for their ghost hunting. We don't really see much of anything that happens in the RV. I mean, they use it. It's kind of like a stakeout place. Like during the night they're in there, like kind of looking at the computer. But I feel like there could have been more fun stuff they could have done with that.
Okay, you have anything else to say about Insidious? Insidious, whatever version number.
I will say that if your the enjoyment of it depends on like how much you like the characters here. Like, I really love them, but it also depends on how much you're willing to go with the story and its plot twists, which just which are about like as high as like the amount of jump scares here. And yes,
there are a lot of jump scares.
There are a lot of jump scares. But that's part of this version of horror, what I like to call like roller coaster horror. You don't go in there to be genuinely scared. You go in there, to wait for the jump scare, and then wait for like the technically creepy part to happen when you're not really scared, but you just kind of laugh at the fact that it's kind of amping up the scares in there. Kind of like how you go into like a cheap haunted house. You're more impressed by the theatrics of it than you are actually frightened by it.
I'm usually actually frightened by haunted houses. That's why I don't go in them, because I don't actually like being scared.
At least like I like horror, and that's how I kind of view it. But of course,
you like horror. You were raised to like horror, though.
That's true, but it's also really fun to. It's another one of those films that because these jump scare films are fun to just go and watch the audience react. Like that's half the fun with like these films like Insidious. Like this was the best. This was the best horror crowd I've seen with in a while.
The things you quoted the other night, that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
These are brilliant. Okay, so like there's a moment where it's obligatory in the Insidious films where where someone is like watching someone else trying to talk to a spirit, and you hear someone else say, "Oh, the spirit's right behind you." And the moment when that was said, I heard someone behind me say, "Oh shit." And then it's so great whenever you hear whenever there's a big jump scare, and then you listen to the rest of the audience. There's one point where there's a huge jump scare, like a ghost just came out of the screen, and I hear like this woman who's got like the perfect Midwest accent up in the top seats over there, and she's saying like, "Oh gosh darn it." So yeah, that's the only other great experience with that I had was with It. At the point when Pennywise comes out of the screen, and there's one woman who, for a full minute after that scene, just went, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." Oh my goodness.
Well, that's better than going to Les Mis and everybody's like, around you is crying.
Yeah.
So, I guess.
It's like I said, that's what it's like. It's roller coaster horror because you go on a roller coaster, and there'll be that one person who's freaked out by it and just can't stop reacting to it. So, in that sense, it is fun. But in the same sense, like I think Insidious is kind of like run out of gas at this point, and they kind of tie this up with a nice little bow towards the end of tying it into the first Insidious film. So chances are we probably won't see another one of these films with Lin Shaye, which kind of stinks because I mean she's amazing in this. I mean to have an elderly woman as your kind of butt kicking like ghost hunting psychic hero in these horror films is really cool. She's amazing in this film. Just the way that she reacts with this kind of like motherly attitude towards these two ghost hunters is not something you see in most horror films, and especially with these jump scare films, we really don't get too much character. We just kind of like jump to the next horror, the next plot point, and we don't really get to have a lot of fun with them. And we get quite a bit. There's quite a bit of laughs to be had with this trio. I just wish there was a better story for them because I don't think they're going to have a better story next time, depending on who's directing it. Because I mean, Leigh Whannell is still writing it, and he's got some ideas, but. But yeah, like I'm very on the fence. If you like Insidious, you're probably gonna like this. But if you've never dug the Insidious films, you might not dig this one. So for me, 2.5 out of 5 stars for Insidious: The Last Key. All right, so we're going to talk about Bright. So the last film I saw last year. Now this is sort of like an urban fantasy cop drama, where or buddy cop.
That's quite a combination, huh?
Yeah, so essentially it takes place in this world where fantasy creatures have kind of melded into our modern life. There are orcs, there's elves, there's fairies, there's also apparently dwarves, and there's probably some other mythical creatures somewhere else in the world. But mostly there's just orcs. That are littering the streets. There are gangs of them. And one of the biggest things that's happened in society now is they have the first orc working on the LAPD. And his name is Jacoby. He's played by Joel Edgerton, who's like an all orc makeup here. And Joel Edgerton has done a great job of losing himself in it.
You can see on the poster, but he just kind of looks blue to me.
He does. And they try to
it's
not...
like he's an X-Men character.
Pretty much, like they try not to go too overboard on the makeup with him because they want him to be comfortable in action scenes because he's still got to wear like that cop getup, so it's mostly just the face makeup and the stuff on his hands, and that's about it. And because you want him to be more expressive, which for that I understand.
Yes, yeah.
And I like the fact that Joel Edgerton can kind of lose himself in the role. Like he was in a film last year called It Comes at Night, and he had kind of looked like big and burly and had a huge beard, and it didn't really look anything like him. So he's really good at disappearing into roles here. Now, I kind of like that angle where, he's kind of like an orc who doesn't quite understand, how to work on the police force. He doesn't understand that he's kind of like the diversity hire, like he's the odd man out, that all the other humans really don't want him on the LAPD, and all the orcs really don't want him working with the police, so he's kind of not accepted on either side.
But he just has a strong desire to work for the cops, huh?
Yeah, he's like, he mentioned like, oh, I want to be a cop ever since I grew up, so he's sticking with it.
So the orcs in this universe, maybe I missed it because I was goofing off my phone.
Mm-hmm.
But are they a thing that's always been there, or are they from another planet, or what's going on here?
They've apparently been there for quite some time because they do mention, like, they never flat out state the history of what's going on here, but they do kind of mention in bits and pieces, like at one point, like they went to war in Russia with a bunch of orcs. And then they mention like stuff like there used to be like a coming of a Dark Lord, or they used to be from a different land. But essentially, yeah, they've been here long enough where they've integrated into society.
So if there's orcs in this, are there wizards and shit, or just orcs?
Not wizards, but there is magic.
Okay.
Well, here's the weird thing. There's kind of
like
like
dragons. You guys see some dragons?
They kind of like, here's the thing. They kind of leave it open. They kind of allude to it. Like at one point they mentioned that
maybe the sequel.
Maybe the sequel. They haven't heard a sequel. They do mention at one point that one orc mentioned that, oh, I used to be in Miami and we used to party with dwarves.
Party with dwarves.
Party with
but
dwarves.
The thing is about dwarves, though, is like we have real people that like to be called dwarves.
That's true, yeah.
Which I don't... I know they want to be called dwarves and they consider midget to be derogatory and fanciful or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the opposite. I would think if I were a, shorter than average person, that if someone were to call me a dwarf, they were making some kind of Lord of the Rings reference or something.
Yeah.
Whereas, midget, I don't know, maybe too much circus memories or something, I guess. Or like, maybe it makes them think of the circus too much and they don't like that.
It's true.
But then maybe, I think maybe I'd come up with another one. Maybe is the actual disorder called, or not disorder.
Condition.
Is it a disorder? Condition.
Condition, yeah.
Is the actual condition called dwarfism or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it seems weird because that's actually the term used in fantasy type stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be better than being called a munchkin, though.
Yeah.
I can see that one being derogatory.
Well, maybe they can explore that in the sequel.
I'm sorry, I'm taking you way off subject. Continue.
Well, okay. Well,
I just want to know all the details of this fantasy universe.
Yeah, we'll go into the details. Okay, so essentially, there's a little bit of a class structure here to how they work. Like the orcs are essentially, most of them are kind of destitute. Most of them are in street gangs. They have kind of like their own little churches. They have their own like rituals that are kind of like on this kind of like secondary part of society.
Okay.
So they kind of left to the side. The elves are the elites.
So there are elves.
Yeah, the elves are kind of like the
Right.
rich people. They control. They're essentially they're a little bit corrupt. They control a little bit of the government. But yeah,
it's modern day Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because the orcs were getting like the short end of the stick, and that's why they were so ticked off, wasn't it?
Yep.
In Lord of the Rings, and then the elves were, all high and mighty and living in fancy pants things, looking like they popped out of a, I don't know, a magazine cover or something.
Yep, and that's exactly what they look like here. They go to the elf part of town where they're all wearing, high fashion, and they all got they got fancy suits and latest dress, and they're all carrying around purses and sunglasses and everything.
Opposed to the Harry Potter elves that are wearing like or is it a pillowcase and rags and stuff and scrubbing floors. I don't know.
Yep. And then
their ass kicked by Lucius Malfoy.
And then you essentially have the fairies, which are as far as I know, they're essentially pests. They're treated like kind of like squirrels in this universe.
Okay, so like there's no fairies in Lord of the Rings, right? I don't remember there being any.
None that I recall.
Unless they were in the book or something. I didn't read the book because I couldn't get through The Hobbit, and so why not?
Yeah.
Hello, Pookie. We're talking about Bright.
Yeah.
But I'm diverting to fantasy topics because that's the
this
part
is
that
fantasy.
interests me. Yeah. So their fairies are more like in Harry Potter, where they're just these like giant mosquitoes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
The
They're
opening
being unleashed by Lockhart and destroying the classroom.
Well, the opening scene has
I guess those were pixies.
Well, the opening
Fairies
scene
are
has
something
Will
different than
Smith. He plays Jacoby's partner, doesn't really want to be his partner, Ward. The first scene you see with him is he's trying to get a fairy out of like their bird feeder. Because it just keeps coming back there. So he essentially comes out there with a broom, smacks it, and just like smacks it to death.
Yeah.
And this is a key scene because like one of the first things he says out there, like there's like a gang hanging out next door, and they're saying like, hey, what are you gonna do with that fairy? Like, you gonna take him down with the broom? It's like yeah, I'm gonna take him down because fairy lives don't matter today.
Fairy lives don't matter. Oh.
And that's your first big warning that you're going to get some heavy racial allegories here.
Well, I noticed that when you started talking about it. Pookie says that Netflix has confirmed a second Bright, which maybe they'll go into dragons.
They could.
They need the budget. They need the budget. Dragons are expensive.
Well, I think this is probably the most expensive Netflix film they've ever spent money on.
I don't know. Netflix has been blowing a lot of money on a lot of their productions. Series of Unfortunate Events is a very expensive production as well.
But in terms of movies.
But yeah, movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Because those are small. They're shorter, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think...
Didn't Landis write this?
Yes. Well, here's the weird thing. Yeah, this was written by Max Landis. He's written like a bunch of other like genre pictures that haven't really taken off, stuff like Victor Frankenstein and American Ultra. And the film is directed by David Ayer, who most people know from stuff like End of Watch. Well, I guess most people know from Suicide Squad. But he's done other films like Fury and Sabotage. Which that's the thing I like about David Ayer, which I think like he's kind of getting away from, is like he's really good at doing films about like assholes, like real huge jerks. Like that's what I love so much about End of Watch, is that it's a cop drama, but you're following cops who are not very good guys, like at all. Like they don't try to like put anything in here to be apologetic for them. They're trying to build them up as kind of very very nasty guys. And then just kind of like throwing them into these situations. Like he did the same thing with Sabotage and War, which are all about, people in positions of like power who just use it to corrupt, and eventually like it'll catch up with them.
Yeah. Does he also have them run around saying, "We're the bad guys"?
Not quite like that, but well, actually, kind of. Well, here's the plot. The plot is that there are magic wands in this universe.
In Bright.
In Bright, yeah, and you can use these wands to grant any wish you want, but the only catch is you have to be a certain type of wizard, I guess, called a Bright, and the only way, to the best of my knowledge, the only way to know if you're Bright is to pick up the wand, and if the wand doesn't make you explode, then you're a Bright.
The one chooses the wizard, Harry.
Yeah. Something like that. But apparently, since it can grant you any wish, obviously everyone wants this wand, even though you can't use it unless you're a Bright. Maybe you could find someone who's a Bright, or you can just, take a gamble and grab it. So they stumble onto this wand, and they figure like, oh, well, who needs it? Like, apparently the elves need the wand to summon some Dark Lord or whatever. Orcs want it.
Those elves sound bad.
Yeah. Orcs want orc gangs want it for their own purposes. Local human gangs want it for their own purposes. Like there's a human gang leader who can't walk and wants it to restore his legs. So everyone's out for the wand, and a bunch of like the cops also want the wand, and to use it as an excuse, like they want to knock off Jacoby. And Ward is like, I don't want any part of this. I got a wife, I got a kid, I'm trying to sell my house, I'm trying to just keep my head low, I don't want any of this.
Which one's Jacoby and which one's Ward again?
Jacoby's the orc,
okay,
played by Joel Edgerton, and Ward is the human cop played by Will Smith.
Alright.
And he doesn't want any part of this, but he's like, I'm already in too deep. So now he's trying to decide who to trust and where to bring the wand and who to use it with. And the other thing is like he's also being tracked by the FBI, or rather the FBI's magic division, which has an elf working on it.
Yes, Pookie, the wand that everyone wants. It's almost like it's the Elder Wand.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like there's a lot of fantasy elements where it borrows quite heavily from.
Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and
like Lord of the Rings. One big thing they borrow from is there's an elf they run into once they find the wand, who's kind of scared. She can't really speak English that well. She's not sure of herself. She's played by Lucy Fry. She's an elf called Tika.
Who's Lucy Fry?
I don't recall anything from her right off the bat, but she's essentially playing Leeloo Dallas. From The Fifth Element.
Leeloo Dallas multipass.
I mean, you could say like, oh well, she's a little bit different. No, other than the fact that she doesn't have red hair, she's Leeloo Dallas. She's scared. She can't speak English. She's frightened and curious by everything. She can use the wand, but she's not really quite sure how to use the wand. And of course, Ward and Jacoby are trying to figure out what to do with her the whole time.
Because she's the fifth element.
Yeah. No, she is. She's
Wow,
like she's the bright.
Yeah. I haven't seen this, but you're not really making a good case for Landis's writing at all.
Well, the problem is, it feels like there's two different films at play here. It felt like Landis was trying to make it sort of a over the top kind of genre fantasy with like wands and magic and trolls, and it felt like David Ayer was actually trying to make like a real cop drama, like a straight like cops are lost on the street and trying to find their way out and try to find their allegiance and trying to not get themselves shot. And these merging of the two stories really doesn't work. We don't really get to know enough about either story. Like the fantasy elements, like they don't really explain most of the fantasy elements. At one point they go to an orc church, which apparently has a bottomless pit in the middle of it for dumping dead bodies, I guess.
Is that where their god is? At the bottom of the pit?
I don't know. And the fact that say like, oh, we gotta waste these guys, and they unveil this huge pit they can dump them in. And there's certain stuff, like I like some of the elements they weave in here, like they say like, oh, in olden days, there used to be like kind of like a blood oath, like an orc would have to prove himself on the battlefield, and then they cut open like the hand, and then they like bleed, so like, oh, you're a man now, like a Klingon ritual type thing.
Oh, so you think he might be taking elements from Star Trek then too, or just...
Well, he's taking elements from lots of stuff, which is fine, but it just feels so unfulfilled here. Like, I mean, like they have like an FBI magic division, and they really don't do much. They really don't do much of anything except normal stuff that an FBI would do.
They're just some lame ass oars.
But yeah, they just look like regular. Except for the one elf with the ears, it's mostly just like the FBI tracking them down, saying like, "Oh, let's keep this magic stuff under wraps, you guys." I mean, we know there's like a wand present, and there's all this crazy crap. But let's keep it on the down low. And of course, like the big threat is like there's some evil elves after them. And like they're typical bad guy elves. They got the slick black suits, and they're very adept at combat. They shoot SWAT members. They have expert efficiency with guns and hand-to-hand combat. And there's nothing really much to them than that. And the plot here just keeps kind of like going through like the motions, and then by the time we get to the third act, it starts whipping all these kind of like, oh, we're really gonna go that route with the characters, and like trying to I don't quite want to say like Deus Ex Machina, but kind of like bringing people, certain plot elements will happen, like like bring someone back from the dead or make someone like the chosen one, or prophecies. They keep talking about a prophecy this whole time just because they keep throwing that word around like it's nothing.
Prophecy.
And man, did I get sick of them talking about wands. They keep saying like everyone's talking about this magic wand, magic wand, magic wand, magic wand.
So I feel like every fantasy thing has to have a prophecy in it, and a chosen one.
Yeah.
It's Star Trek.
Well, it's like a lot of them.
Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. You gotta
have the prophecy. That's the thing. Like, I don't know if it probably exists in this universe, but I was kind of curious like how the depictions were, because at one point, like I think Ward calls Jacoby, like he says he looks like Shrek at one point.
Oh.
So it makes me wonder, like,
so Shrek exists in this universe.
Yeah.
Why?
Somebody made a tweet about this earlier, saying that okay, if Shrek is in this universe, that must have been the most racist thing to ever.
Yeah, because he's an ogre. Do they have ogres in this universe?
Not that I know of. No.
Okay.
There might be somewhere.
Cool. There's ogres in Harry Potter. They're ogres. Ogres in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'd be open for a sequel, especially since they're going to get a different writer to work on it. Because I want this urban fantasy to work, but the story they weave here, like the stuff that they're trying to put in here doesn't work. Like the banter they put between Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, like some of it's kind of funny, some of it's kind of charismatic, but most of the time it doesn't quite hit that level. Like it feels like, again, like another fight between Landis trying to be like, funny, look at this genre stuff, and Ayer trying to, make these guys look like jerks to each other. And so you get kind of this point in between where they don't quite feel fully defined as characters, and they're just kind of like, players in this whole prophecy thing going on. And like the writing just got so ridiculous by the end, and I didn't really feel much for the characters, that I couldn't really care less about what happens in the end. Like, who gets the wand, who gets to make the magic happen. Who cares? Magic saves the day just because it's magic. So,
Magic.
and again, like that, there's very heavy racial allegories. Just want to bring that up again, just because they do, like they do at one point mention where Jacoby flat out tells Ward, like, look, like I'm not accepted by either the orcs, like I'm not accepted by my own people. Do you know what that feels like? It's like, ooh, this is getting almost like, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Theodore Rex, but it's almost getting.
Is that the one with the dinosaur and Whoopi Goldberg?
Yeah, the one where she says like I don't know if I want to work with a dinosaur, and they say like what are you, a speciest?
Ooh.
It almost gets to that level.
Ooh, that sounds corny.
It is pretty corny.
Does it reach that level of corny in Bright too?
Very. For some, it probably will. It barely. It tap danced on that line between going like being way too offensive here. Like it looked like, hey, we could do this. We could have like
cringe.
we could flat out like have racial pejoratives for the orcs. We could do it, and they don't, thankfully. Like they just kind of stay safe here. But unfortunately, that makes the film almost kind of like too much of a mess. I mean, I don't really care for the characters. Ayer's style really isn't here. Even Landis's writing style isn't quite all there. And the whole film is just like a cobbling together of good ideas that never make a great idea. There's just a huge mess.
Kind of like with what I've heard about the DC's recent Justice League movie, where you can see a difference between the two directors. What I forgot their names.
Oh, you mean between Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon?
Yeah, there's some scenes where people are like, "Oh, this is clearly a Joss Whedon scene, and this is clearly a Zack Snyder," and it doesn't match up well, apparently.
Well, no, because those were
styles conflict.
Well, those were kind of like conflicting like direction of certain scenes. This is kind of like a conflict of
storytelling.
Yeah, of storytelling between like Landis's script of like genre fantasy crap and David Ayer's vision of like like gritty street action drama.
So basically, they matched up the wrong director with the wrong writer.
I think so. I think if Ayers had a better hand in writing this, and you had someone who's kind of more used to writing urban fantasy, it's something on like the level of kind of like Hellboy, or something along that line, that might have worked. You might have been able to weave this story, but unfortunately it just feels like just Landis just like throwing fantasy elements at the screen, and Ayers trying to throw gangster and gun elements at the screen, and they don't connect. Like it's not a peanut butter jelly situation. It's just kind of like your styles aren't really working here. And mostly just because ultimately I could have forgiven all of that if I liked the characters, because it's a buddy cop film. So if I liked the dynamic between them, I would have forgiven it. But there's not much to these characters. We don't learn much about them. Certain things don't pay off at all with them. Well, for Jacoby, yeah, he does get kind of like the blood oath thing that kind of pays off. But Will Smith's character has he has a wife, he has a daughter, and he has a house he wants to sell. This really doesn't play a part in the plot at all, other than just saying like, oh, it's off to the side here, so don't risk anything. Like there's never, I expected there to be like a moment where the elves would hold her hostage, or the FBI would hold her home or something like that. Just something, because if there's no point to it, why bring it up?
Pookie says that one of the ways to identify as a villain is sleek clothing. There's superheroes that do that too, though.
Yeah. But the fine black suits, and they show up looking all stern and everything like that. So.
Yeah, kind of like that. Oh no, I'm not gonna. It's just like a Bond villain kind of look, right?
Yeah, I mean it's classic villain stuff, but. Yeah, like there's so much untapped potential here. Like, would I be open for a sequel? Sure. There's a lot of potential here if they can explore it properly. They do not with Bright.
Well, and hey, if you've got a Netflix subscription, you're not losing much money wise.
No.
You usually get your money's worth out of Netflix, right? Just watch a ton of
Well,
stuff.
at least in terms of visual effects, you'll get your money's worth here. They clearly spent a lot of money on the action scenes and the makeup effects and the magic effects. They look really good here. So they clearly put all their money in that, which is fine. It looks okay. It lacks Ayer's style. I think that's when they care more than anything. So
sounds like a bizarre film.
It's a bizarre film, and I mean, and it's been dogged on, and I've heard a lot of people, because they really want this film to work. They're just like, oh, it's not that bad, but it's like, I really didn't care for the characters, and I didn't get enough of this world where I felt engrossed in it. So it is what it is. So for Bright, I'm gonna do 1.5 out of 5 stars, and I'm trying to go easy on it just because I want this to work. I like this whole idea of like kind of an urban fantasy, and you have like this kind of like hierarchy and everything, but it just doesn't pay off as like the buddy cop film it wants to be. So there you go. All right. So I thought I'd move on here to the sort of like the couple ballots are out right now for the for selecting and nominations for award season. So I thought I'd go through just kind of like a few different parts of the categories here. I voted on a few of them. So I thought I'd just go through a few to mention, just in case anyone else is filling out the ballot or they're considering films that they'd like to place on their own little awards list or whatever. So I kind of went over like the best picture of the year last time. I think the best picture is The Florida Project. Do you have any films that you're?
I didn't really see a lot of movies last year, did I? I don't really think I did.
Not too many. I know that the Darkest Hour is.
I really liked that one. That one was really good. Yeah.
And there's kind of a fight now between deciding whether or not they should nominate Dunkirk or The Darkest Hour. I think they should both be in the same category, just because they're both in the same event and they're both great films.
Were they made by the same people?
No.
Because it'd be kind of interesting if they did it as, like a combination double feature kind of thing, and just managed to get them out in the same year because they tie in together. I didn't see Dunkirk.
Yep.
I'm not really into war films, but
gosh,
I already said Gary Oldman, you can't even tell it's him until you look at his eyes.
Yeah.
So
and that's where we're going here to the best actor category. I think unless like because it's kind of like a battle right now between Gary Oldman and Daniel Day-Lewis. Because
what movie for Daniel Day-Lewis? I didn't see much this year.
It just recently came out. It's called The Phantom Thread. And
I think I saw the trailer for it, and it didn't even sound like Daniel Day-Lewis at all.
Yeah.
He goes all the way.
Yeah, and they're thinking about that he might win this year just because he's like this is his last film. Like he said
really?
Well, yeah, he said like he's quitting.
His shoemaking business is really taken off, huh?
Well, he said that he's quitting after this role because he doesn't think he can do he believes this is his best work.
Oh,
that
really?
that like he's not going to be able to do anything better after this point. Which if Daniel Day-Lewis is saying that, you're just like, ooh, then this must be pretty big. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the Phantom Thread. It's snuck. It's going to be opening in about 2 weeks here. It kind of snuck in at the very tail end of the year here. But it's going to be between him and Oldman. But I think it's going to be very close because, like we said,
Oldman was fantastic. He just melted completely into that role.
Yeah.
It would be easy to not even recognize him.
Oh, yeah.
It would be very easy.
Well, it's weird because I saw an interview with him, and you look exactly nothing like Winston Churchill. It's like, is this the same Oldman? This looks like it was from 2 years ago. This can't be him. It's like, no, it's him. And it's like, wow, it's and I think what I love so much about the performance is that the director Joe Wright has so much faith in the mannerisms and the makeup and just the costume and everything about the character that he can zoom in on Churchill.
Oh, yeah.
He zooms in very close, and you're still kind of lost in it. Like you don't see the seams. You're still looking at it. Like, man, this it feels like Churchill. It's like look how much detail we've got in here.
The only part of Gary Oldman I can recognize in that movie is his eyes. So.
Yeah, you look in that. I mean, like the amount of like close-ups they have with him, like it seems absurd, but you understand it as the film goes on because you lose yourself in it. Like, you know, just like Joel Edgerton, you know, he gets lost in it, and you're like, is that Daniel Day-Lewis? No, is that Gary Oldman? Could be Daniel Day-Lewis.
Never a dull moment in The Darkest Hour.
No.
It held me.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much a lock between those two actors. But I think Gary Oldman might have the edge this year.
More people probably saw The Darkest Hour.
Well, we'll see more towards awards time because like Phantom Thread, like The Darkest Hour has already opened up like wide, so most people have seen it by now. Phantom Thread's going to open up in about 2 weeks, so depending on people's reaction,
How can it count for last year if it hasn't opened up yet?
Is it for opening wide? Like the last weekend of the year, they'll open stuff up in like New York and LA, and then a few small markets. Like the Post is just going to be opening up next week.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's stupid.
Well, it's because they don't want it to get lost in the winter season. They want people to have a chance to see them come Oscar time. So they do this sneaky thing where they kind of sneak it into a few theaters along Christmas. And then come January, when there's nothing but crap out, you can expand all these Oscar films when, you know, the Oscar nominations start coming out. And then everyone can get a chance to see them. So that's their tactic there. And then we have Best Actress. And I'm a little bit biased towards this because I like the Florida Project so much. I think that the little 10-year-old girl, Brooklyn Prince, I think she has a chance at a nomination.
I like the idea of a 10-year-old winning award show. I don't watch award shows at all because I think they're stupid and I don't care.
Yeah, I don't watch them either. I just love tracking them. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think she has a very good shot at it. And if not her, then the woman who plays her mother in the Florida Project, I think her name is Brie Vitae, something like that. She's just the performances all around on the Florida Project are just amazing. But those two in particular, especially since they're kind of like breakout actors, breakout actresses in these roles, I think they're definitely going to be worth noting. Outside of that, I'm trying to think of any bigger names. I know like Zendaya is in like a whole bunch of roles this year that she might get a nomination for one of them. I think that's the only big one I can think of. I mean, I know there's a little bit of a push for Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Might happen. I just think it'd be kind of interesting to see a superhero film in that category. Then we have Best Director here. And again, like, kind of go over the line here, but yeah, I think, Sean Baker, I think this might be his year to win with the Florida Project. Outside of that, like the other nominations I'd like to see for that, I'd like to see Jordan Peele for Get Out. I think it's very strong directorial debut. No surprise that he's filming The Twilight Zone. And Spielberg might be like, he seems a little baity for having him, be nominated for The Post, but I think he probably will be. I think those are mostly the big ones. Oh, and Dee Reese for Mudbound, I think should definitely be up there. And that all around as well. I think Mudbound is that ensemble drama of taking place during World War II in the Mississippi. I think that's probably it's finally going to be the one that's going to get Netflix more attention for Academy Awards. Because I know Netflix they've been fighting really hard to get stuff in there for Oscars, and I think this might be their year. Because they got Mudbound, which is really great, and then the Meyerowitz stories, which might sneak in there as well. Especially because the Meyerowitz stories is, for those, it's another Netflix film, and this one's actually surprising me because it's a Nolan Bachman film, and it's probably the best role I've seen from Adam Sandler in forever. Like when did Punch Drunk Love come out?
Well, I'm
Probably
guessing he didn't produce it then.
I don't know. No, I don't think so. But it's weird because it kind of stars most of familiar people he's worked with before. It's got like Dustin Hoffman and Ben Stiller. But then yeah, you've got some other great actors in there like Emma Thompson and
Emma Thompson's great actress.
yeah, and she has a fairly small role, but she really shines in it. Like there's just enough in here for every actor to have something to do and have something more to their character.
That's good.
I especially like Adam Sandler's character, surprisingly most of all, because he's this dad who's trying to deal with the fact that that his father, played by Dustin Hoffman, wasn't really that great of an artist or a father. And
An artist, eh? What kind of artist?
I think he was mostly kind of like a sculptor.
Okay.
And he's supposed to have like some big exhibit that he was going to have at a museum, which is kind of like a small kind of like pity exhibit.
Pity exhibit. Oh,
but he's
like the kind I'd have if I were
something like that. Like he's kind of looked down by other artists, and like he kind of like he doesn't want to look down on his dad. But at the same point, he's like he wasn't that great a dad either. And his character is even more interesting because he's got a daughter going off to college, and he's so afraid that he's going to end up like his father that he's trying to make all the right moves. So when he sends his daughter off to college, because most of the time when they have these films where the daughter goes off to college, the parents always like frantic, like oh no, call me every night, like are you going to be okay? Do you need money? And here it's the exact opposite.
It's like you'll be fine.
Well, he's kind of like fine.
Get out.
And at one point, he tries to like call her to check in on his daughter, and he says like hey, is everything going fine? It's like and her daughter's kind of like more concerned. She's like, yeah, what's up? Like I was just about to head out to a concert, but is anything wrong? It's like no, it's fine. Just go to your concert. No, seriously, is anything wrong? No, it's fine. It's fine. Go.
Was it like when my dad leaves me a voicemail message? I'm like, who died?
Who died? Something like that. Well, it's surprising too because like they established too that her daughter she goes into filmmaking and she sends back these very kind of like John Waters style surrealism.
Oh, I
films.
think I saw the trailer for this one, and they're like, "Oh, it was good" or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, they're just kind of like, "Oh, that's
great,
a little odd, but it's pretty good." I guess. Yeah. It's a surprising one. I hope it'll at least get. It probably won't get him a nomination, which is kind of sad. It'd kind of be nice to throw Adam Sandler a bone. Maybe Ben Stiller. He's in his best supporting. He could. It's surprising. I've never really liked Ben Stiller, but here I think he's great.
I think he always plays this jerk. I don't know.
Well, it feels warranted here for the character he's playing because he's kind of like the outsider trying to escape the family. Like he knows his dad is bad, that he doesn't want to associate with him. So he leaves the state, he forms his own family, and he kind of comes back kind of like begrudgingly, and is sort of just like a jerk to everyone because they won't kind of acknowledge the fact that your dad was a jerk.
So he plays a jerk here too.
But it's kind of like a jerk that's warranted. It doesn't come out of the fact that he's just
a jerk. That's supposed to be funny.
Like he's not intended so much to be funny. Like there's one point where he's essentially just having a shouting match with Sandler because they both hate each other as brothers, and it feels genuine. Like it's a little bit funny, but it's not trying to like go for laughs here. It feels like brothers bickering over something very real and very, very serious.
Although, really, when's the last time you bickered with your brother? Elementary school?
Yeah.
Same here. Well,
yeah.
He was in elementary school, probably. I don't know.
Well, yeah. But our family wasn't as troubled as this Mayorowitz family, because the more that they divulge about what's going on in this family, you're just kind of like, oh man, you're surprised that anyone turned out decent in this family.
It's kind of like that happens a lot when you hear about entertainers' families, though, in general. And I mean,
usually, yeah.
So they're probably pulling from that. These writers, they're pulling from maybe some of their family experiences.
It could be, yeah.
And then I don't know. A lot of artists are kind of messed up too.
Yeah. You
pull from the pain. You work through. The challenge makes you stronger. Something like that, right?
Yeah. At least, yeah. It feels very genuine for it. So yeah, hopefully it'll get.
Maybe I'll actually watch that one.
Yeah, definitely. I love, especially the editing. I love how the fact that that they find just the right moment to cut off during a scene. Like that, like they'll have a moment where, like, you know, like a conversation will get heated and they're screaming at each other, and just before the person's about like to slam the door or scream the last expletive, next scene. Immediate. It's like yes, we've got that scene. We're done. Next one, go. And yeah, it's got a great flow to it. Next is best adapted screenplay. So this is any film that's like based on a previous property, like a book or comic book or television show or previous movie, stuff like that. I'm kind of hoping for, might be a little bit of a long shot, but I'm kind of hoping for Blade Runner 2049.
Oh yeah, well I know you have a special place in your heart for Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I liked the first one. I haven't seen the newer one. I kind of think I kind of don't want to watch it just because I feel like I'm not going to like it as much as you, and I don't want to sit there and be like, because I was kind of like that during the first time we watched the first movie. It was all right, but I didn't like it anywhere near as much as you did, and I thought certain parts of it were silly. So.
You might actually like 2049, because I've heard, because like I like it a little bit more than Blade Runner, and I've heard from other people say that, from other people who haven't liked Blade Runner, they kind of looked at this one and was like, okay, now I kind of understand what you liked so much about the 80s version.
So part of the other thing, though, is you know, I like to hear movies deconstructed a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've heard things about that movie that made it not sound that great. So I don't know. If I'm going in with that mentality, I might not like it. And just, I don't know. If you hype up movies too much, I try to avoid them. So.
Yeah. Well, I kind of had the benefit here, at least for when I was writing the review, of like they gave us a long list of spoilers. Mm-hmm. And they rarely do this at press screenings, but they gave us a long list of spoilers saying, don't mention all these plot points, including one plot point that's revealed within the first minute of the film.
Did they do that during the recent Star Wars movie too, or they just told you don't give any spoilers and didn't tell you what they were?
They didn't give any specific spoilers. They just said just try not to spoil as much. Like we have an early embargo, so just don't try to like spoil too much here. Okay. Like Blade Runner, they actually gave us a list. And right. And I respected it because it was written directly by the director Denis Villeneuve. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so much like an order so much it was kind of like a plea, like kind of like you know, this is like,
don't ruin the movie.
Like I put a lot into this film. There's a lot of.
I've heard the spoilers, probably from you and from online reviewers, because that's what I do to myself. So I feel like also if a movie if you can't watch it without knowing the spoilers, if that ruins a movie for you, it's probably not that good of a movie. So I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, well, it's initially like we just do it just because, you know, for like the initial shock of like someone who wants to see it for the first time.
Yeah, well, I guess sometimes there's things have more punch, but then the movie has no rewatchability then.
It depends on how they set it up. Like there's a lot of stuff I want to go back and look at in Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, but you also are obsessed with Blade Runner, and I think you like science fiction a lot more than the average person. So
maybe, but I don't know. Underrated film, so.
Well, I'm not trying to be overly critical. I'm just poining that.
No, that's fine.
That opinion out.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I know. I love the Blade Runners.
Yeah, I know. I love Blade Runner.
Another one.
I'll see it eventually.
Yeah, I think it comes out in like 2 weeks. So. Yeah. Another one that I'd say for best adapted screenplay, which I think has a very good shot at it, is Logan.
Oh, I loved Logan. That was good.
Logan is probably the only time I've ever given a crap about Wolverine.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm not big into Marvel myself, but the movies, they usually do well, but that's mostly the formulaic Disney ones.
Yeah.
But Logan was surprisingly good and much more of a Western than a superhero. Mm-hmm. But we've brought that up before too. So.
Yeah, well, and that the fact that it's willing to go with just the brutality of it, because like the one thing that I know most people are looking forward to it was, Wolverine's going to bring out the claws. He's finally going to like slash people up, and he does, but he has like more of a purpose to it. Like there's more meaning behind than just showing the blood and guts.
Yeah, well, Deadpool opened the doors for that too. So.
Yeah, which is why it's kind of everyone's all excited that Disney is buying Fox.
I'm not excited about that because Disney doesn't like to take risks. I feel like they like to deviate a lot from canons. I think they kind of ruin things. And, I know some people who are just obsessed with Disney.
Yeah.
And I just kind of go quiet whenever they talk about it because I have complete opposite feelings about Disney. They're not that I dislike Disney exactly. There are Disney movies I like.
Sure.
But even as a child, it irritated me how the Hercules movie deviated so far from the Hercules mythology.
Well, they all pretty
they
much
all do.
deviate.
I've heard a joke. I think it was the Dom or something with the adaptation reviews where basically take the book, the source material the Disney thing is based off of, throw it as far as you possibly can from yourself, and it'll still be closer to you than the adaptation is to the source material.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, that's the thing. Like back in the day, like Disney would do that just to make stuff work. Yeah. Like they deviate. Like Pinocchio deviates heavily from the book.
Well, what they usually try to do also is to make it more family friendly. Mm-hmm. Because come on, the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah. But like, if whatever they can weave from it can kind of work, then I can kind of be forgiving. Like I do like the fact that
Pocahontas.
That's what Pocahontas. Well, I did actually like the fact that Hunchback of Notre Dame was actually they were trying to do something different by having an animated film with a love triangle. And if you have a love triangle, it means someone's going to get their heart broken. Someone's not going to end up with the girl, and they're going to...
As opposed to the source material where most of the characters die.
Yeah. We're making a little bit of a leap there.
Well, I guess my main primary beef with Disney these days is sequel fatigue, and that they're remaking all their animated films into live action, even if they're gonna primarily just be computer graphics, like The Lion King, because how else are they gonna do The Lion King unless they're having people wearing the costumes like they do in the stage production, which I don't think would be a good idea for a film. But I think they're just cash grabbing everywhere, no originality whatsoever. As opposed to Pixar, which I think is technically part of Disney, but they kind of do their own thing, except for the Cars movies, which were trash.
Yeah. Well, they can't all be winners, but usually when they make a great film, like they made Coco this year, then they made Inside Out.
I liked Inside Out.
Then they can use when they hit well. Like when they make a great film, like it's like a masterpiece. Like it's like Coco and Inside Out are like some of their best films to date.
They need to stop remaking things. Like the Beauty and the Beast movie did not need to exist.
Well, the problem
remake of that.
The problem with that is
and auto-tuned Emma Watson, who acts with her eyebrows.
Yeah, they were trying to rework a lot of it, especially the practical effects of the Beast. They had to subdue. They had to push most of that aside for CGI, which. Yeah. And the more you see the practical effects, the more you wish there were CGI, because the Beast kind of looks like he can barely move or express anything in that film. And the problem is, I really like the fact that when they were doing stuff like The Jungle Book and Pete's Dragon.
I love The Jungle Book, and I think I watched most of Pete's Dragon at home. I think that was good. Jungle Book I actually saw in theaters though, and I loved The Jungle Book.
Yeah, and what worked about those films
added something to it though.
Yeah, because those Jungle Book and Pete's Dragon, I doubt anyone would tell you they're Disney classics.
Well, see, I never watched the original Disney movie of Pete's Dragon. I did watch Jungle Book, but the Jungle Book, the cartoon, doesn't even come close to what the live action version was.
No.
well, the CGI version with a one live action character.
Yeah.
But I mean, that one was great.
Well, if you can add to it.
I don't know. I don't even. So I don't want to crap on things that people like. Like I said, we have friends that are obsessed with Disney. But the Cinderella, I saw it, and I didn't really feel like that really added enough to warrant making the live action adaptation of Cinderella, because Cinderella's been done 100 times. You know?
It didn't add a lot to it. I think they took kind of a soft approach to it, but I think that's mainly because they were trying to rework it.
Yeah.
Like the original script, it was going to be like a darker version.
Okay.
Like they were gonna take essentially.
So they pussed out basically.
They were gonna take a Maleficent route, and
I don't know if they should have done that. I liked Maleficent the first time I watched it, but on reputed thinking things over and if I were to rewatch it, I don't think I'd like it. It had some dull spots, and then some kind of forced things and things that when you think about them don't hold up. And I always hate the argument of things are made for kids or, it's just a movie, don't think about it. I'm not going to waste my time on something where it can't suspend my disbelief. You know? I think that's a failure of writing if it can't suspend you. So.
So I was trying to think, best... Let's see, went through most best adapted screenplays. I think Mudbound is based on a book, so that'll probably end up in there too.
Is it?
I think I looked it up a little bit. It's based on a book. Then we have best original screenplay, which like I said, the Florida Project is an easy one. I think Get Out will be nominated in this category too, and I think probably. Trying to think of what, possibly Dunkirk. Possibly Dunkirk. I'm not a lot of people the big one is going to be Dunkirk, because you're going to see like a huge push for this film in January. So chances are it's probably going to have a shot at just about every single category here. So, but yeah, for me, the Florida Project all the way. Best animated film. This is an easy one because this year was very dry for animated films.
Coco?
Yeah, definitely Coco.
I guess right.
Well,
what other animated films came out this year? Does Lego Batman count as animated?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So Lego Batman is in there.
Ninjago was bland. Lego Batman was good. I'm sure Coco was way more original though.
Because like at this point, it's not a matter of what's going to win in this category. It's obviously going to be Coco. I mean, it's Pixar's masterpiece. It's some of like their best work. It's going to get nominated. It's going to win. The real question is what else is going to be nominated. And I think Lego Batman might have a shot at it because a lot of people really dug Lego Batman.
I liked it.
Yeah, it's
interesting how it had all these other movie villains in it.
Yep.
The Daleks and Voldemort and stuff.
Well, very, very telling of like Batman humor.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like even if you're not familiar with Batman humor, it's still a lot of fun because it keeps you going with it. Like that scene where they mention all the villain names, and then they say like, "Oh yeah, they're actually real."
Google it, right?
Yeah.
Or worth the Google. That's what he said, right?
Yep.
Or then when Alfred, who's voiced by Ray Fiennes, is going through a whole bunch of previous incarnations of live action Batmans, and then it's like, and that weird one back in the 60s.
And then they show the clip from the 60s just to remind you about the Batutsi.
Yeah.
So you get in on the joke.
The other ones are the the Lego Batman wearing the different costumes from the different years.
Yeah.
But then the 60s one is Adam West.
Well, there's just
like the Batutsi.
Like this film is a Batman fan's wet dream just because all the characters they use, all the costumes, like when they have Batwoman, like Batgirl getting the costume on, they show all the different versions of the costume before they get to like the more modern one. So.
It was Robin, I think, too, wasn't it?
They did the same with Robin.
Well, and then they had Calendar Man and Condiment King.
Condiment King's the best.
That's great. Did they have Maximus Zeus too from the '60s show? Yeah, I think they did.
He might. Yeah, I think he was in the background at one point.
Yeah.
There was a lot of them. I did think it was interesting that you had Ray Fiennes voicing Alfred.
But then Voldemort was voiced by someone else.
He's voiced by what's his name? That one comedian.
They're probably like, Rafe, do you want to voice Voldemort as well? And he's like, oh heck no. I've already been Voldemort.
Not doing him again. Get someone else.
Someone else can just whisper, right?
Oh, another
whisper
one.
Whisper and strain.
Another one that might have a shot is Captain Underpants.
I loved Captain Underpants.
Yeah, you might have a shot.
I didn't see that one in theaters, I don't think, but we watched it a ton at home because we have a kid.
Yeah.
And she loves that movie. That one was easy to watch though. But, I find the books really easy to read. We can get through about one book per hour, and the kid will pay attention the whole time, and that's a really good sign for a book, because at her age, they don't have a lot of attention span, so... Yeah.
Well, more than anything, just, like, the film, like, it's got lowbrow and crude humor, but it's also very... It's also very knowing and very, very innocent, and it's got a really great message towards the end, and has a lot of fun with it.
I feel like the kids get their comeuppance more than they do in the first Captain Underpants book, too. So,
yeah.
I mean, I haven't read all the books. We just read 2, but those kids... It seems like they're trying to be portrayed in a positive light, but they're doing terrible things that I have to explain to my kid. Don't do that kind of thing. Do you know why that's bad? Oh, that's not good.
Let me learn why it's bad by the end. So
Not the movie, not the book, though.
But that's a good thing. They do what you should be doing with these types of books is you try to mine more material from there and try to make it work as opposed to just kind of like whipping stuff out of your butt. Because that was really cool. Like they brought together a whole bunch of different parts from the books and tried to interweave them and actually try to say more and do more with the characters.
They had enough source material. I don't know where these books end up because I've only read the first 2, but
well, there's plenty more material, so I mean, and they've called this the first epic movie.
Well, they're gonna have a sequel then.
Hopefully there's a second one. I mean, it didn't do great at the box office, but
I think kids will love this movie though.
Oh, the kids were going nuts.
Kids love potty humor.
Dude, at the press,
bring
like
your kindergartner, first graders there.
No other.
They'll love it.
Like, because I've taken my daughter to all these animated films this year, and I don't think there was a single one where the kids were more digging on it than Captain Underpants, and that's saying something for when they brought it to Despicable Me, and they weren't digging that as much as Captain Underpants.
To be fair, you didn't bring her to Coco.
I did bring her to Coco.
Oh, you did? That's right. You just didn't bring her to the screener.
No, I didn't bring her to screener, but I brought her again because Coco was that good.
Yeah. And there are movies she didn't like at all that you've seen.
Not sure.
This year so much, but there was one for sure she said it was too silly.
There's
didn't like it.
There's plenty this year she didn't dig. Yeah. She didn't really dig Leap. She wasn't as keen on the Nut Job 2.
Oh, and she's completely in the demographic for Leap too, isn't she? Like
yeah.
Yeah.
And even like I think she was kind of lukewarm on the My Little Pony movie too. So.
Oh, that's not good because she loves the show.
Yeah.
So
it's not a bad film. I was actually surprised by the animation, like how much they upped their game with. I was expecting their typical tweens to like not do that much in between animation, but I was actually surprised by how much effort they put into it. It's not stellar 2D animation, but they did certainly push the software as far as it could go. So.
Yeah. Well, and also to be fair, our kid didn't fall far from the tree and is very critical of movies and art. So
yeah,
I drew a picture of her and she's just like, "You did this all wrong."
Got it all wrong.
She's like, "You did this wrong. This isn't the right color. Basically, you did it all wrong, or something like that, right?
Yep.
You really didn't do this right." I'm like, wow, kid. Thanks.
So those are, I think, definitely Coco's going to be nominated, and then probably like Lego Batman and Captain Underpants, and then and then usually like the Academy will do this. They'll try to like throw some smaller films at bones. So expect to see maybe like a nomination for there was a second part to Don Hertzfeldt's film, like The World of Tomorrow. There's a second part to that. Remember that one? The little girl who sees herself in the future? The little stick figure one? Remember that one? The Don Hilsford one? It's called like The World of Tomorrow, where she's visited by a version of herself in the future saying like, this is what happens in the future.
Oh, yeah. That's like a short though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one.
They made a sequel to it.
Oh, okay.
So chances are it might get a nomination there, if not for animated short. I think it's a little bit longer that they could promote it as one. But definitely they'll try to throw something else a bone. So they might nominate the anime In This Corner of the World, and then an independent surreal art film called Bird Boy. So
any relation to Birdman?
No. No Michael Keaton floating. Sorry. No sequel to Birdman yet.
Birdman's trusty sidekick, Bird Boy.
Bird Boy. It's a spin-off. So then we got Best Score. I think it's going to be tight. It might be between... Could be a Hans Zimmer year. I think it's between like Blade Runner 2049 for Hans Zimmer score and Dunkirk, which I think is also Hans Zimmer score. I'd like to see Cliff Martinez get in there for his kind of like synth work. I just don't think he was at his highest heights this year. Like he did the soundtrack for the Foreigner, which he did a pretty good job on it, but I think he might have, like, for those who don't know, like Cliff Martinez, he's done the music for the films of like Drive and the Neon Demon, so he does very atmospheric synth type stuff. You might hear in like a David Lynch film. And when he did the Foreigner, I get the feeling like he was trying to really stand out. Like there's certain scenes where it feels like he went nuts with the synthesizers. Just say like look at me, I'm doing synth. Pay attention to me. Yeah, I think it might be up with Hans Zimmer this year. Never know. John Williams is always a lock pretty good, so he's got that for Star Wars. Chances are he might get in there. But Hans Zimmer is a fairly good bet. Best original song, there's no question for me which it's going to be. It's going to be Remember Me from Coco. And anyone...
All right, sing a few bars.
Remember me till the day of all the... Something like that.
I didn't think you'd take me seriously.
Just so you get a feel what that song is, because there's a few different versions of that song in the film.
Okay.
It starts off, like, the first time you hear it, it's kind of like a sensational melody that you'd sing on stage with, like, lights and everything. And then by the end of the film, it's a more somber, emotional song that has a lot more meaning towards it. So it's definitely going to be nominated. It'll probably win. The big it's really mainly between, I think it's between Coco and The Greatest Showman. Because The Greatest Showman...
A few bars from The Greatest Showman.
Never! No. Dang it, I did it again. I got the music in me. Yeah, like, it's definitely going to be for The Greatest Showman. I think it's just going to be, which song they're going to choose. I think it's going to be either between Never or This Is Me. And chances are it'll probably be This Is Me if they want to have, like, a big show number. But chances are they'll also nominate 2 in that category. Because they could nominate 2 for Coco as well. There's a lot of great songs in both of them. So I'm trying to think what other songs there might be. Because those are the only 2 that are sticking out in my mind. Because those are just some of the best songs of the year by far. So I doubt...
Okay.
I can't think of any more. All right, so best visual effects. I'm hoping... I'm hoping, like, again, like, Town the Parade of, like, Blade Runner 2049. I'm hoping that'll win for best visual effects just because how they stage the environment, how they have, like, the hologram sequence, including one particular intimate scene with a hologram. I think that might be worthy of best visual effects. But again, you have...
Intimate scene.
But then you have, like, few ones that you kind of expect. Like, Star Wars will probably be nominated. There's a...
Will it be?
For visual effects. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually nominated. It might not... It probably won't win, because there was that big upset in 2015 when it was nominated for best visual effects, and it lost to Ex Machina.
Well deserved.
Yeah, because...
Ex Machina was a, pretty visually stunning movie, so...
Yeah, for essentially just trying to make this kind of like robot woman look believable. Mm-hmm. It was amazing, and it was it's amazing to see a film like that with a very small budget win over like Star Wars, which had like a $200 million budget with all these practical effects and costumes and CGI effects and all this stuff on top of it, and a little film like Ex Machina wins.
You can throw all sorts of money at things without them actually succeeding. It depends on where that money's actually going, which in the case of Star Wars was probably going to the actors. So,
well, I think it was mostly going to like a lot of more of those like practical, like the big thing with The Force Awakens was they were boasting about all like the practical effects. Like, oh, like that big pig monster drinking from the water. Yeah, that was
a practical effect?
That was a practical effect.
Why it looks so CG?
I think maybe because we're just so used to like CGI creatures and monsters now that we can't really differentiate them. So
that's not good.
Well, that was a practical effect. The whole that dissolving kind of stuff where you put the water on the little tablet and it makes the bread, that was a practical effect. There were just so many great practical effects in there, and yet still Ex Machina wins because it's a great use of CGI. So if you use it well, and I think they use it really well in Blade Runner for what they do with it. Like they have hologram technology here, and they find a lot of interesting stuff to do, and it feels like believable hologram technology because like you can kind of like take the hologram with you and upload it in certain environments, and when you start it up, like it starts up with this kind of like symphony for like the company that designed it, kind of like, you know, how like the PlayStation 3 and 4 will start up and they'll play like kind of a little bit of music. So it feels very believable, like the way the fact that they made like a hologram character feel, you know, real, that you had like more of an attachment to it, especially in scenes where there's kind of stuff phasing in and out between it, and then just like the cool effects of like the speeders and like the not quite speeders, the flying cars and the environments just look amazing. So I'm pulling for Blade Runner. Best costume. This is a little bit of more of a tricky one. I get the feeling The Greatest Showman might be a big one for this category. Just because you got, you know, the whole P.T. Barnum get-up, you've got all the other attractions and their get-up as well. So chances are that's going to be a big contender for that. I was trying to think of some other ones. I don't want to say Blade Runner, but I kind of do, just because Harrison Ford's costume. Just a t-shirt and jeans. But yeah, I think The Greatest Showman might be the one to beat in this category. Because like the only other ones I can think of are kind of the more outlandish ones, like Thor Ragnarok, where you have that crazy getup with Jeff Goldblum dressed in this.
Or the giant antlers.
The giant antlers.
Headdress.
There's a lot of crazy costumes in there. So chances are it probably won't win, but it'll definitely get nominated. So that'll be interesting. Best makeup. This is the only one I think Bright might actually be nominated for. Just because like the effects on like Joel Edgerton's face for the orc I think are pretty cool. The whole elves. So yeah, another David Ayer film has a chance at best makeup. Trying to think of what other films like that. Maybe Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy does usually pretty good makeup with stuff like Drax and the Mantis actually look pretty good. So.
Was that makeup for Mantis though?
Well, there's obviously some CGI around the eyes and the antennas, but just, you know, making her kind of look like that kind of like pristine alien. And then you got like the golden people with like all that crap around their face. So.
Oh, those people.
So yeah, kind of a toss up in that category. So for best sound editing and sound mixing, I think both are going to go to Dunkirk, no question. Dunkirk used its sound so well, it cranked up the audio and it made you feel like it's terrifying to be on this beach. It feels like every bomb is like, you know, gonna actually come out and hit you. Like every boom! Ah! It's exactly like Dunkirk. Well, like I'd be curious to see this again in the theater because like when we saw this in the theater, they were having audio issues initially. So it made me wonder if when the film started up,
look at you.
If it made me wonder if when the film started up that they were going to start just cranking it up, just like, oh, just we'll fix if the speaker's not working, just crank it up, because it felt about as loud as Transformers: The Last Night, and I mentioned this in my review, like I liked it more than Transformers: The Last Night because the whole point is you want to get out of Dunkirk, you don't want to be here. feels terrifying. Every gunshot, every bomb that drops, every explosion that happens, it hits you hard, which is what Nolan wanted to do with the film. So I don't think there's any question that it's going to be nominated and take both those awards. That's like a lock at this point. Best foreign film is going to be Raw. I definitely think it's going to be Raw. For those who haven't seen this film, it's a kind of French body horror-ish type film about a vegetarian woman who goes off to college to study how to be a vet. But one of the initiations there is that she has to get blood on her, and she starts tasting meat. She gets a feel for meat.
I saw part of this one. It was gross.
Yeah, and then she starts turning into a bit of a cannibal.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's the part I saw. It was really bad.
It's very gross.
I think I made you turn it off.
Yeah.
Was our kid home when you were watching that too?
No, she wasn't. Okay. It was it's very gross. It's very much body horror. But it's very well shot. I think the actors in it are amazing. The themes that they bring up in here are really good about, trying to find yourself at college and how you end up in this very warped, weird, and scary place where you're not quite sure, what route you want to take. And it has a very twisted ending. So I'm pulling for Raw. It'd be nice to see some horror win some of these awards. Let's see. Best documentary is a little bit tricky this year. Like, I've seen most of the best documentaries here. I think it's amazing because, like, I looked at a few people's lists, and, like, some people were trying to say, like, oh, we should nominate Score, which is a documentary about soundtracks. That for some reason...
Oh, you told me about this one.
Yeah. And, like, I was looking for it on the eligibility list, and I wasn't seeing it anywhere on there. So, based on, like, the list of, like, the ones I've seen on the list, I think the two big ones, they probably won't be nominated or win, but I would like to see Dina and City of Ghosts. Dina is it's a documentary about this autistic couple who are just about ready to get married in this very small town, and they start slowly revealing, like, Dina's history and why she's so cautious about getting into this relationship, even though she's very open about being in this relationship. And they reveal it quite well. They follow the characters, they follow the subjects very well, and it's kind of like very emotionally moving. And then City of Ghosts, and this could go hand in hand with, like, I think there's one called like Sounds of Syria or something like that. But it's about the journalists who were inside ISIS territory while it was being taken over, and then them trying to get out word what was going on here, because ISIS was trying to silence them, from getting stuff out on the internet, from in the media, and all the precautions they had to take. And even once they left the area and they left the country, they were still being targets, and they were still trying to get this word out. And it's very emotionally moving, especially when you start seeing them, trying to grapple with the fact that, other members of the journalistic group are being picked off and killed and captured and executed, and then their family members being taken in. So it's definitely an essential documentary. It's on Amazon Prime right now. So yeah, I think those are the best two. There's some smaller ones I've seen this year, like Take Every Wave and Jeremiah Tower, but those are mostly kind of like soft subject type of documentaries, at least in comparison to something like City of Ghosts. So I'm kind of pulling for that film. Best cinematography, I really hope this year it's going to be Roger Deakins for Blade Runner 2049. I think just every shot that he set up here with the visual effects here, like, every shot looks amazing in this. I'm hoping it'll be up there. Like, the one film I think it's going to be in competition with is Dunkirk, just because the way that Nolan wanted everything set up with all the soldiers on the beach, and just like the practical effects of, like, the planes and the explosions, and how you want everything to be authentic, I think just looks amazing on screen. So I think it's definitely going to be between those two. But I'm hoping for Roger Deakins to take this one home. And then we have Best Production, which this could go either way, because it's mostly just about, how they've designed the sets, how, they've assembled the characters, how they did the lighting. It could go either way. It could be Thor, could be Star Wars, could be Guardians of the Galaxy. You already know what I'm going to say, so let's gonna be Blade Runner. And then finally, and this was kind of like I saw this on a few ballots, but there was one called voting for the best scene of the year, like a best particular moment from any type of film. And for me, I think it's the ending climax of the Florida Project, in which kind of like Brooklyn Prince's trying to deal with the fact that like life isn't going to be this sweet. It's going to come to a roaring end, and just her kind of like somber, not being able to accept what's going to happen next. I think that tore my heart out more than any other film this year. So I definitely think that's the best scene of the year. Do you have best scene?
No.
No. Okay. Great. So yeah, that's about all the nominations there. I'll bypass the worst film, because there's probably going to be a bunch of ridiculous categories that the raspberries will come up with. So golden raspberries. So I think that's about all I have for right now, unless there are any other movies you want to discuss. No.
You want to talk about Tex Murphy?
Tex Murphy.
I did a little on my stream. It's just we've been playing it a lot lately.
Yeah, we've been really into the Tex Murphy video games. Love that full motion video, man.
That's what it's called. I couldn't remember.
FMV.
Yeah.
It's like watching a movie, only you get to click occasionally.
You make him walk around and stuff too.
Yeah.
Well, when we hadn't turned down the speed, we were walking around like he was drunk too. Zipping past. Smash into a wall.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I think that's about all I have for this episode. We'll be back on
Wednesday at 8 Central Standard Time on my channel, Vision Goo.
Yep. And then I'll be back for more Movies with Mark on next Thursday, where we will have, we'll be on at 8 o'clock Central, where we will have reviews of Paddington 2 and The Commuter, which is a Liam Neeson action film. So
when did you see those?
I'm gonna see them next week.
Oh, okay.
Monday and Tuesday. So.
Oh, all right.
All right.
We'll be fresh off of watching them then.
Yep, we'll be fresh off of watching them and have a fresh opinion for you.
He will. I'm not a movie reviewer.
Well, she'll have an opinion of my opinion, so.
Will I? Okay.
All right.
Should I be insulted?
No, you can critique my opinions. Like, well, your opinion's wrong.
I can't really say that if I have no reference.
Well, if you haven't seen the film, okay. Fair enough.
I saw the first Paddington Bear and I thought it was okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Not really my thing. So.
I'm digging on it. Let's see Peter Capaldi back on screen.
Oh, because he plays the grumpy neighbor.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's apparently playing, I think he's playing a police officer in the sequel.
But he was a different character in the first one.
I think he might have had a change in job.
Maybe the kids will forget.
Yeah.
He just really likes Paddington Bear as well as Doctor Who.
Well,
He's no longer on Doctor Who.
Well,
I'm sorry I keep rubbing my nose.
It's a British film.
I'm very dry.
So you're going to get, if you remember from the last one, Jim Broadbent played a German antique owner. So.
But Jim Broadbent's in everything.
True. But like I said, it's a British film, so, small country. You're going to find a lot of the same actors there. So.
True. Why was Nicole Kidman in it then, the first one?
Because she made a great villain. She made a great villain in that very white suit and this kind of like evil look on her face. It's the best I've seen from Nicole Kidman in a while, so I'll take it.
Usually I think that she's in a lot of bad movies, but she's a good actress.
She is.
And
she's
not usually the thing that's bad about the movie.
No.
So
she was
Golden Compass, it wasn't her that was bad about the movie. It was, I don't know, the child actors and the fact that they had these animals, but everyone looked so bored with them, and it was just dull.
Yeah. Yeah, Golden Compass was pretty boring. For sure. Yeah, Paddington 2, looking forward to that. Paddington's going to apparently go to prison in that. And then we got The Commuter.
Prison.
We got The Commuter, which, it's a Liam Neeson action film, but it's directed by Jean Soleil, I think his name is. He's directed some of the better Liam Neeson action films, so stuff like Run All Night and A Walk Among Tombstones. So
And his daughter hasn't been kidnapped?
no, it's different because
No, I've seen the trailers. It looks decent.
Yeah,
For
he's
action movie.
he's a pretty solid action director. So I'm looking forward. Maybe he can give me some more decent Neeson action.
Yeah.
want that Neeson, man. All right.
I enjoyed the first Taken movie.
Yeah. Before it went to crap, yeah.
I didn't watch the sequels. Don't watch the sequels.
No, don't watch this.
Unless it's something like Harry Potter, where you know roughly what it's going to be. Don't bother with sequels, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it
I think
depends.
there's a good reason that Jim Carrey's not really in any sequels other than that Dumb and Dumber one.
Yeah. Well, it depends who's helming them. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. Thanks for watching.
Yep. And we're done.